Welcome to Pekin, just off the coast of the Illinois River. Come experience everything this small Midwestern town has to offer.
Well, Pekin is just a really great place to live and to raise your family. You got good school districts. You got one of the super park districts in the state of Illinois. It's just an awful good place to raise a family and good employment rates. And so people have a tendency to stay.
Pekin features many renowned landmarks across town, including the beautiful Mineral Springs Park Lagoon and Pavilion. And just across the street you can find the world's greatest sundial. Last but not least, there is also the Dragon Dome Athletics Facility, a recent addition to the community. It is among many places across town to adapt the Pekin Community High School mascot, although before 1980 the school was known for its far less conventional nickname, the Chinks. That's right, a much different mascot represented this high school before the emergence of the lovable, innocent dragon. His name, Mr. Bamboo. Annalisa Cromwell is most credited for naming the city Pekin for reasons still obscure, but there is one widely held consensus behind the name's origins.
I used to joke with my kids about it because I'd pick a globe up literally and tell them that I had always heard, or at least the rumor was, that Pekin got its name from Peking, China, because it was at the direct opposite side of the globe, which it is not, because we're both in the same hemisphere for one thing. Because of the name Pekin, that being supposed to Peking, that the name Chink came from that.
After a stint as the Celestials, both the Robots and Reds were used before Chinks officially caught on. By then, all of Pekin had come to embrace their adopted Chinese heritage.
The people of the city of Pekin considered the term Chinks as an honorary name, and they had the Chink and the Chinkette dressed like Chinese and did a little performance.
One of my good friends was the Chinklet, the girl, and they dressed up in these beautiful Chinese outfits and would come together with a guest cheerleader from the other team and go and bow at them and escort them off the thing.
It was classy.
And it was classy, and it was a silence when they did this because it was a moment of pride.
A lot of my friends were other players on other teams.
In Peoria, too.
Peoria.
We played a lot.
And they thought, it was classy, it was impressive. In fact, one of my best friends, he played at Richwoods, and he ended up playing at college with us, and he goes, it was the classiest thing they've ever seen in their life.
Personally, I would like to see the city of Pekin, or the school athletic teams, reestablish their halftime ceremony where they have the Chink and the Chinkette, and not to call it something else, but the ceremony that honors the heritage of the Chinese.
The Chinks nickname, never officially adopted by the high school yet openly embraced for nearly 5 decades, quietly continues to hold a special place in the hearts of many local residents who graduated long before the nickname change.
And a lot of the people are in their 60s or 70s.
Sure.
And I mean, you talk, we're not dragons, we're still Pekin Chinks. I mean, that's their whole idea. We were a white community totally. And
pretty naive.
We were naive. You never thought as the Chink to be, like she said, a negative. We always thought we were standing for something to be proud of.
And proud they were after earning statewide prominence with basketball championships in 1964 and again in 1967, a team Norman served on his senior year. It was also a time when many outsiders first learned about Pekin and its unique mascot.
My first recognition of Pekin in the Pekin area was the '64 basketball tournament, which was then on free TV and available statewide. That's how I first heard of Pekin, and the Chinks was on them going to the state basketball tournament.
Despite the increased spotlight on this otherwise unknown central Illinois city, little fuss was made over the controversial Chinks mascot. Even after winning the '67 state championship, former Mayor William Waldemeier and the rest of the Pekin City Council signed a resolution declaring it Chinks Week. It was a great time to live in Pekin, but as concern over the nickname slowly increased, it was not always a great time to be a Chink.
When I went to college, I found out people, because Pekin had a wonderful basketball team
Yes.
that year, and I happened to go to school over at Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois, and my college roommates found out that my team nickname was the Chinks, and I found out how other people reacted to that, and I was embarrassed. I was horrified that people thought that we were a racist town. I truly believe, as a native Pekinite, I went through schools all the way through, just like Jerry did here in Pekin, that there is not one way that we meant Pekin Chinks to be bad or racist in this town. I mean, why would we name ourselves something that is a horribly offensive name? I never mourned the old name, but I certainly didn't condemn it myself.
Bob and Gloria Neal dedicated more than 30 years each to the high school that once donned the Chinks nickname. Gloria, born in Hawaii and whose parents were native Chinese, was among the few minorities in Pekin at the time.
I was the first Asian. I was the token chink back there is what I was.
So naturally, once objections toward the Chinks nickname reached a boiling point in July 1974, Gloria was called upon to offer her point of view, and she did so the next day.
Everybody uses it in a nice way, and I had never had the term chinks used in reference to me in a derogatory manner. So although up here I knew that Chinaman and chink were not good words, I'd never heard it in a nasty way toward me. So when I came here, they were proud of the basketball team and their sports programs. So, okay, it was fine with me.
I think another thing that shows how this community viewed Chinese or whatever is that, you know, sometimes there's a lot made about interracial marriages. Well, this is one that has, I don't think, to our face, nobody has ever said anything about that at all. You know, so obviously it's not something that's on the minds of people in this community.
Living in Pekin, it is insulating, and hopefully, you know, slowly it will change, because you do miss out on a lot of cultural and learning about different lifestyles.
Pekin received a large dose of culture in October 1974 when the high school was visited by various Asian American delegates and other civil rights activists. Their goal was to enlighten the students on exactly what Chinks means. Bob Saul, PCHS Student Council President at the time, chauffeured the guests around school after speaking with both them and school administration.
Basically, they contacted us about coming down and doing a day, and it got a lot of publicity, you know, a lot of publicity. As you can imagine, the administration wanted to have an influence over what was going to transpire. They sort of defined how this day was going to go. They wanted me to handle it a particular way, and there was a way that I thought it should be handled. Well, I'm sure there was a way my guests thought it should be handled, because the administration would have preferred that this never would have happened. So you can lead to your own conclusions as to the way they wanted it handled. You know, they wanted it as low key as possible. These folks coming down and sort of opened the eyes of a lot of people, but it didn't change the way they felt, the allegiance and the pride about being the Chinks. I was not pro or anti, but I wouldn't say frightened, but deeply concerned with the damage that the people from Chicago could do to the city of Pekin's reputation. As executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, I didn't want to go through that type of publicity.
Well, they were more heated than anyone else, really and truthfully, because did it really matter to us as much as it mattered to them? And so in seeking a change, obviously they're going to be more direct, more critical, more everything, and it was just a case of everybody going along and trying to figure out what a solution was.
Many Pekinites did not react well to the notion of outsiders criticizing their city, with Pekin city and school officials receiving dozens of letters from across the country before the delegation's visit.
I felt they had no business coming in here. You know, this is our town. The taxpayers are the one that puts the bill, and the administration and the board makes the decisions.
And most of the kids said, well, you know, I grew up here and my dad was, and we look at it with a sense of honor, sense of pride, you know, and then
then they would get frustrated because they were looking at people that were sitting there telling them that what was a dirty word to them was something that we had a source of pride in. And they found that pretty consistent throughout the day. And they realized that their task was going to be a lot tougher than what they anticipated.
The Chinese American delegation ultimately requested Saul and the rest of the student council put the nickname up for a school-wide referendum.
They don't want to leave it in the hands of just a handful. The buck was passed to the student body from the people that ultimately should have been the decision makers, and that's the school board.
Students overwhelmingly voted 1234 to 182 to retain the Chinks nickname, and the next month Shields was named the Chinks subcommittee chair.
Like I say, I got letters, I had phone calls, you know. I hardly had any negatives. You know, it was always generally positive. And I think most of the board members were that way, that they didn't want to see that name changed.
The board ultimately voted to keep the nickname the rest of the school year until permanently voting to retain the Chinks mascot in March 1975 by a 5-2 vote. Dennis Stoller was one of the 2 dissenting votes.
Didn't have it ingrained in me that this is the way it had to be, because this is the way it always was. I tried to look a little deeper into it, and what did it mean to have Pekin known as something that might be offensive to other people. It just did not seem as much value to me to keep that name, simply because I didn't grow up with it. That's it. Definitely I want to represent constituents, but if it goes against my core belief, I can't do that. I just can't do that, and the constituents are just going to have to accept that. And if they don't accept that, then they can vote me not on. And they didn't do that.
Abruptly before the start of the 1980 school year, brand new school superintendent James Elliott announced during a faculty meeting that the nickname officially will be changed from the Chinks to the Dragons. It was not until 2 days later the local media caught wind of the change.
I think the class of 81, probably 82, and those that were coming up, I mean, they had something taken away from them. Whether they've truly embraced it at all, I mean, no matter what it is, if you take something away from somebody, all of a sudden it's like, well, that's the world's best thing to me, even though 15 minutes ago it may not have been. You know, don't take it away from me.
The anticlimactic decision did not go without its fair share of scrutiny from the Pekin community, but any protests made against the name change were quickly dismissed. Allison Drini's class of 1980 came to call itself the last of the Chinks after graduating just prior to the nickname change, a slogan he said the reunion community no longer embraces.
Yes, we were, there's no doubt, we were the last graduating class of the Chinks. But, you know, on the other side, if we weren't, chances are we wouldn't put anything on the book. I mean, my guess is class of 81 doesn't put on theirs that we were the first year of the Dragons. I would guess. I mean, I'd be surprised they would.
Looking ahead 30 years, local residents have replaced the once popular Chink rink with the more common Dragonland swim facility and Putt the Magic Dragon miniature golf course. They are both just examples of how the city has come to embrace its newfound dragon spirit.
Now that that change has been made, there's no looking back. There's never been any desire to be anything else but the Dragons. By 1980, it had been phased in already. It was already done. Dr. Elliott's coming just made it official policy.
But now that we have become more politically correct and more politically educated, the chance of having a nickname that outrageous in 2010 probably would be a non-issue, because it wouldn't even come up as having a chance to make it. Today, these kids probably, unless they're told about the history, they probably don't know anything different than Dragons. Much like in 75, we didn't know anything but being the Chinks. Not an excuse, but an analogy.
But nowadays, no. The kids really feel, because they've been, we're Dragons. But still the dragon, and they're trying to get dragon pride. And you see the signs everywhere now.
Will Pekin ever get rid of that connotation? I don't know. I mean, I just, it'd be nice to be able to say you could, wipe the slate clean, but we relive history in this country over and over.
So the bottom line is change, and many times can be good. I thought, you look back and this was a good one, Pekin Dragons. Other things maybe not so good, but this was a good one. Now that we look back.